The moment someone lies about you, something inside you wants to fight. You want to explain everything, show the messages, expose the truth, make every person understand exactly what happened. But what if that need to defend yourself is the very thing giving the lie its power? Because while they speak for a few seconds, you may spend days reacting. You lose sleep. You lose focus. You lose control of your own direction. All because someone else placed a false story in your ken. You lose sleep. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Not every lie deserves your voice. Not every accusation deserves your energy. And not every person deserves access to your peace. Powerful people understand this. They do not remain silent because they are weak. They remain silent because they know the difference between protecting the truth, performing for people who have already chosen what they want to believe. Sometimes your strongest response is evidence. Sometimes it is a boundary. And sometimes it is continuing your life so calmly, so consistently, and so powerfully that the lie eventually collapses under the weight of who you truly are. The question is not whether people will misunderstand you. The question is whether you will abandon yourself trying to correct them. Have you ever spent an entire night arguing with someone who had already decided not to understand you? You replayed every sentence, rewrote every message, searched for the perfect proof, and promised yourself that one more explanation would finally make the lie collapse. But morning came, and the lie was still there. Worse, you were exhausted, distracted, and beginning to doubt your own memory. That is the hidden cost of defending yourself against every accusation. You may protect your image for a moment, while abandoning your peace, your work, and your direction. The uncomfortable question is not, why are they lying about me? The deeper question is, why do I believe every lie deserves access to my life? Powerful people are not powerful because nobody speaks against them. They are powerful because not every voice can command their attention. They know that panic makes you easy to control. They know that the need to be understood by everyone can turn your dignity into a public trial. And they know something most people learn too late. When your character is real, it does not need to chase every rumor through every room. It needs consistency, clarity, and time. This does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean pretending words never hurt. A lie can wound you. It can make you angry. It can threaten trust, opportunity, or belonging. You are human, and your nervous system reacts before your wisdom has time to speak. But there is a difference between feeling the wound and allowing the wound to choose your failure. The first is honest. The second is surrender. Many people defend themselves immediately because silence feels like defeat. They think, if I do not answer, everyone will believe it. Sometimes that fear is reasonable. Some situations require a clear response, but many do not. Many lies survive, not because they are convincing, but because you keep feeding them your energy, your attention, and your repeated explanations. Every new defense creates a new stage. Every emotional reaction gives the storyteller fresh material. Every attempt to control every opinion pulls you farther from the life you were building before the noise began. Your first task is not to answer. Your first task is to see clearly. Ask yourself, what is actually at risk? Is this damaging my safety, my livelihood, my legal standing, my family, or a relationship that matters? Or is this only disturbing my pride because someone somewhere holds a false opinion of me? These are not the same problem, and they should not receive the same response. A mature person does not use one tool for every situation. Sometimes you speak, sometimes you document, sometimes you ask for mediation, sometimes you set a boundary, sometimes you walk away, and sometimes you let a foolish story starve because it cannot survive without your participation. The central lesson is simple. Do not respond to a lie according to how much it hurts. Respond according to how much truth, consequence, and responsibility require. Pain demands immediacy. Wisdom examines proportion. This is where your strength begins. Not in winning every argument, but in refusing to let every argument decide who you become. Imagine a mountain during a storm. The wind strikes it, rain covers it, thunder announces itself as if the sky has become the ruler of the earth. Yet the mountain does not rise to explain its shape. It does not negotiate with the clouds. It remains where it is, not because it cannot feel the storm, but because its foundation is deeper than the weather. You need that kind of foundation, not arrogance, not indifference, a grounded knowledge of your own conduct. When you know what you did not do, what you stand for, and what you are willing to correct, accusation loses some of its power. But when your identity depends on constant approval, even a stranger's misunderstanding can feel like an emergency. That is why the real work begins before the lie. You build a life whose pattern can carry the weight of temporary confusion. You keep your word more often than you break it. You apologize when you are wrong. You do not use "I know my truth" as an excuse to avoid accountability. You make your private behavior match your public values. Then, when falsehood comes, you are not trying to invent credibility under pressure. You are standing on credibility already built. Here is the surprising part. Sometimes, the most exhausting defense is not against other people. It is against the possibility that they may never change their minds. You can present evidence and still be misjudged. You can speak calmly and still be called defensive. You can remain silent and still be called guilty. You can behave with integrity and still become the villain in someone else's story, because that role protects them from facing themselves. This is painful, but it is also freeing. Once you accept that you cannot control every interpretation, you can stop spending your life trying to manage minds that are not open to truth. Acceptance is not agreement. It is the end of a useless struggle with reality. It says, "I do not approve of this, but I will not destroy myself trying to force another person to be what they are committed to denying." That sentence is not weakness. It is emotional discipline. There was once a potter who made water jars for a village. His work was quiet, strong, and trusted. One year, a jealous merchant began telling people that the potter mixed sand into the clay and that his jars would crack. The potter heard the rumor and became furious. He left his workshop each morning to argue in the market. He visited homes to explain himself. He followed the merchant from street to street, answering every accusation. For weeks, the village heard little except the dispute. Meanwhile, the potter's kiln went cold. Orders remained unfinished. Customers who had never doubted him began to wonder why he had stopped making jars. One evening, an old woman came to his empty workshop, carrying a jar he had made 20 years earlier. She placed it on the table and said, "This has carried water for my family longer than that man has carried his story. Why are you letting his tongue close your kiln?" The potter did not answer. The next morning, he returned to his wheel. He made the strongest jars he had ever made. He marked each one with the date and invited any buyer to inspect the clay, the firing, and the finished work. He gave one clear statement in the market. Then he returned to his craft. Months later, the merchant was still talking, but fewer people listened. The village had fresh evidence in its hands. The potter learned that truth must sometimes speak, but it should not abandon its work to keep speaking. That is the parable you must remember. Your life is the kiln. Your character is the clay. Your repeated conduct is the jar people eventually hold. A lie may enter the market before your truth arrives, but speed is not the same as strength. Falsehood often runs fast because it carries nothing. Truth may move slowly because it carries the weight of proof. Do not confuse delay with defeat. Still, wisdom does not mean passive silence in every case. There are lies that can cause real harm. If someone makes a false claim that affects your employment, reputation in a professional community, legal rights, physical safety, custody, finances, or a close relationship, calm action is not insecurity. It is responsibility. Speak to the right people, not to everyone. Preserve messages, dates, records, and witnesses. State the facts without adding rage to them. Ask for correction through proper channels. Seek legal, professional, or emotional support when the situation exceeds what you can handle alone. Strength includes knowing when to involve others. Healthy power is not isolation. It does not say, I need nobody. It says, I will not turn a serious problem into a public spectacle, and I will not carry it alone when appropriate support can protect what matters. Notice the difference between a response and a campaign. A response is clear, proportionate, and directed toward resolution. A campaign is endless, compulsive, and driven by the hope that no one will ever misunderstand you again. That hope cannot be fulfilled. There will always be someone who hears half the story, prefers the dramatic version, or judges you through the lens of their own history. Your peace cannot depend on universal agreement. Even the people who love you will sometimes misunderstand you. Even you have misunderstood others. Humility remembers this. It keeps you from turning every conflict into proof that the world is against you. Sometimes a person is lying. Sometimes they are mistaken. Sometimes they are repeating what they heard. Sometimes your own communication was incomplete. Before you call every disagreement an attack, investigate. Ask what was said. Ask what evidence exists. Look for the part you may need to own. Power without self-examination becomes pride. True discipline can defend itself and still remain teachable. This may be difficult to hear. Your urge to defend yourself can sometimes hide an excuse. You may say, I cannot focus because people are talking about me. But perhaps the noise has become a convenient reason to delay the work that scares you. You may spend hours composing replies because replying feels easier than confronting your pulch. You may tell yourself that you are protecting your name while neglecting the habits that would make your name stronger. This is not condemnation. It is a challenge. Do not let conflict become a hiding place. Do not use another person's behavior to explain why you abandoned your own standards. They may be wrong, and you may still be responsible for what you do next. The lie is theirs. The lost week can become yours. The accusation is theirs. The neglected health, missed deadline, broken promise, or abandoned discipline can become yours. Protect yourself where needed, then return to your path. You do not win by becoming consumed. You win by remaining available to your own life. There is a practical way to do this. When a lie reaches you, pause before responding. Not for days if urgent action is required, but long enough for your body to settle. Breathe, walk, write down exactly what happened without adjectives. Separate facts from interpretations. They said this. This person heard it. This consequence has occurred. Then ask 3 questions. What needs protection? Who actually needs an answer? What outcome would a wise response seek? These questions move you from reaction to direction. If the answer is, nothing important is at risk, and the source thrives on conflict, then silence may be the strongest boundary. If the answer is, a valued relationship is being damaged, then have one honest private conversation. If the answer is, my work or legal standing is at risk, then use evidence and proper support. If the answer is, I made a mistake and the story is partly true, then correct the false part and take responsibility for the true part. Nothing disarms manipulation like a person who is neither falsely ashamed nor defensively dishonest. You do not have to present yourself as flawless. You only have to be accurate. Say, that claim is false. Here are the facts. Or say, I did make this mistake, but the rest is not true, and I am addressing what I did. Then stop repeating yourself to people who are not seeking clarity. Repetition does not always increase understanding. Sometimes it only advertises desperation. Let your statement be complete. Let your evidence be organized. Let your next action be consistent. Quiet authority is not mysterious. It is clarity without performance. Boundaries matter because some people do not want an explanation. They want access to your emotional reactions. They ask the same question after you have answered it. They shift the accusation when one version fails. They invite you to defend your tone, then your timing, then your motives, until the original issue disappears and you are defending your entire existence. This is not dialogue. It is a trap built from endless demands. You are allowed to say, I have answered this clearly, and I will not continue the conversation in this form. You are allowed to leave a group chat, end a call, request written communication, or involve a neutral third party. You are allowed to protect your nervous system without pretending you feel nothing. A boundary is not punishment. It is a statement about the conditions required for respectful contact. And when those conditions are repeatedly violated, distance may be healthy. Not dramatic isolation, not revenge. Measured distance that gives you room to think, heal, and choose. The fire metaphor is useful here. A small flame can warm a home, but when you throw fuel on every spark, the whole house can burn. Your attention is fuel. Your outrage is fuel. Your late night checking is fuel. Your need to read every comment is fuel. You cannot always stop another person from striking a match, but you can stop carrying gasoline into the room. This may mean muting notifications, asking a trusted friend to screen messages, limiting public replies, or taking a temporary break from the place where the rumor is spreading. That is not running away when you have already handled what must be handled. It is refusing unnecessary exposure. Healing requires space. Clarity often arrives after stimulation decreases. Powerful people protect that space because they understand that a disturbed mind makes poor decisions. They do not worship calmness as an image. They create conditions where calmness can return, yet do not confuse calm with emotional suppression. You may need to cry. You may need to tell a trusted person, "This hurt me." You may need counseling, prayer, journaling, exercise, rest, or a conversation with someone who can help you regulate what happened. The goal is not to become stone. Stone feels nothing, learns nothing, and cannot connect. The goal is to become steady water, responsive, adaptable, and difficult to poison because it keeps moving through healthy channels. Feel the anger, but do not hand it the steering wheel. Feel the grief, but do not build your identity around being wronged. Feel the fear, but do not let it write messages you will regret. Emotions are information. They are not always instructions. When you honor them privately and guide them wisely, they lose the need to explode publicly. Another reason powerful people do not defend themselves against every lie is that they understand audience. Not every room is a courtroom. Not every listener is a judge. Not every rumor deserves a press conference. Sometimes the people who matter already know your pattern. Sometimes those who instantly believe the worst were never standing close enough to know you. This does not mean dismissing everyone who questions you. Honest friends may ask difficult questions because they care about truth. Welcome that. Answer people who have earned trust and who approach with fairness. Do not confuse curiosity with accusation, and do not confuse accusation with authority. The loudest voice in the room may have the least knowledge. A person's confidence does not make their claim credible. Learn to ask, what is this person's relationship to the truth, to me, and to the consequences? That question helps you decide the weight their opinion should carry. Everyone can speak. Not everyone deserves equal influence. Your mind must have a gate, not an open border. There is also a deeper discipline in letting some lies remain unanswered. It teaches you to release the fantasy of controlling your image. Your image lives in other minds, and other minds are not your property. Your character is yours. Your choices are yours. Your correction is yours. Your reputation is partly yours, and partly the result of time, relationships, systems, and stories beyond your control. When you spend all your energy policing your image, you become separated from your character. You start choosing what looks right instead of what is right. You perform goodness rather than practice it. You become afraid of honest mistakes because they may be used against you. But a strong life is not built by never being criticized. It is built by knowing how to examine criticism without being ruled by it. Ask, is there truth here? If yes, learn. If partly, separate what is useful from what is distorted. If no, decide whether consequences require a response. Then return to your work. This rhythm: examine, respond if necessary, release, is one of the great disciplines of adulthood. Release is often the hardest part. You may have said the truth clearly, shown the evidence, and set the boundary, yet your mind keeps reopening the case. In the shower, you invent better sentences. During work, you imagine confronting them. Before sleep, you picture everyone finally admitting you were right. This mental courtroom can continue long after the real conversation has ended. It feels like preparation, but often it is rumination. It keeps your body inside a conflict that is no longer happening in the room. To release, you may need a closing ritual. Write the facts and your response once. Save the records. Tell one trusted person. Decide the next review point if the matter is ongoing. Then, when the mind returns, say, "This has been handled for today." Redirect yourself towards something physical and present. Your breath, your feet on the ground, the task in front of you. You may need to do this 100 times. That is not failure. That is training. Discipline is not a single heroic decision. It is the repeated return to what matters. Struggle itself can become part of your growth when you stop asking only, "How do I make this disappear?" and begin asking, "What capacity is this asking me to build?" Maybe the lie is teaching you documentation. Maybe it is teaching you to choose friends more carefully. Maybe it is exposing your dependence on approval. Maybe it is strengthening your ability to speak under pressure. Maybe it is revealing a workplace, relationship, or community where truth is not protected. Growth does not mean pretending the experience was good. Some situations are unjust and should never have happened. Growth means refusing to let harm have the final word. You take what can be learned without glorifying what hurt you. You become more discerning, not more bitter. More boundaried, not more closed. More truthful, not more obsessed with proving truth. The wound becomes a teacher only after it is cleaned. Otherwise, it becomes an infection. So care for yourself. Seek appropriate help. Give the process time. A mountain path does not become shorter because you insult the slope. You move by taking the next stable step. There will be days when restraint feels invisible. Nobody applauds the message you chose not to send. Nobody sees the hour you spent calming yourself instead of escalating. Nobody knows how difficult it was to speak one clear sentence and then stop. But invisible discipline changes your life. It protects relationships that anger would have damaged. It preserves opportunities that impulsiveness would have thrown away. It keeps your mind available for creativity, work, love, and rest. You do not need an audience for every victory. Some of your most important victories will look like nothing happened. The argument ended. The rumor faded. You returned to your schedule. You slept. You kept your promise. You did not become cruel.